And now for our final speaker, I'd like to introduce Jo Wyles. I'm just going to pull up her talk. And I want to offer a special thanks to Jo because she stepped in very last minute. We invited her to come when Deborah Hogan from the Department of Family and Community Services had to appear before the Supreme Court on an adoption case. And so, of course, that took priority. And Jo, a little bit about Jo. So she's a social worker and a trainer with nearly 30 years of experience in various settings and many, many years in adoption and all forms of adoption, including intercountry adoption, intrafamily adoption, and out-of-home care. And she's worked as a contractor for FACS for most of those 30 years to provide assessment reports, casework, post-placement support, and court reports as an expert witness. And she also provides training to prospective adoptive families through the Preparation to Adopt seminar, and also trains other assessors who do the assessments through FACS. So Jo today is going to speak with us about the experiences that she's gained over many years in building relationships between birth and adoptive families.
Okay, all of those people that know me, you can start smiling now. Remember, I need your encouragement because I was the last one on and I'm not a researcher and I don't have that or the letters before or after my name. So I'm a practitioner, and I suppose this isn't in my talk, I just wanted to highlight, I've worked all my working career, and probably Lynn the same, and Mary, and there's a whole heap of us. We've all been working in the context of openness. And I think that's important to acknowledge. It's very different to the experience in England, but maybe just an understanding of how that context of openness has come about. And I really love the woman right at the beginning, the Aboriginal woman, because I think there's our lessons that we have learned about closed adoption. Don't you think? They're the people. And it's not just about relationships and loss of birth family. It's loss of culture and community and loss of country. And I think we have learned. I think we are still learning from those practices. And the other past practice that we've learnt from other past practices, there's lots of good research about why closed adoptions don't work, and I think we're learning from that as well as, and this is where my practice has come from, is listening to adoptive children and young people and adults, listening to birth families and listening to adoptive parents. So that's where I'm coming from with a lot of my learning has obviously come from theory and reading, but probably my biggest learning comes from listening. And I think that's how our practice going forward needs to continue. So I'm really grateful that we're starting to do this research. Okay, how do I press the button? That one, okay. So now I did the PowerPoint on the weekend, but I thought I needed to make it pretty. And my daughter's at uni. I said, "Oh, how do PowerPoints look at uni? I'm going to a university. How do I do this?" And she said, "Well, Mum, you've got to put pictures in." So here's my first. Anyone seen this? Upper middle bogan. I googled birth parent adoptive family contact. Look what came up. This is, for those of you who don't know, it's a comedy about this woman who makes contact with her birth family and the relationships that occur between all the parties. So the upper middle class bogan. And I think it's really good watching that show because it really highlights the complexities of those relationships because they're coming from different places. Yeah, this was the next picture. That there's lots of people involved. It's families connecting with each other. And so there's my pretty pictures. Okay, then I thought I need to start with quotes. I better get some reading done, get some quotes. So, guess who the quotes came from? Beth. So you can read all those if you like, but she's already done it. But again, it's about, I like this picture, putting the jigsaw pieces together. Oh, I don't know what's up there, sorry. But anyway, Beth has done a very good job talking about the benefits of contact and what happens. And I really like the quote at the bottom. If we do not honour our past, we lose our future. If we destroy our roots, we cannot grow. That fellow, I did Google him. He's an artist, and I thought that was a really good way of putting together the benefits of contact. Okay, this is some quotes from people. This is Helen, is an adoptive parent. We use her often in seminars. But one of the things she talked about in why she believes contact's really important is she wants to develop good values in her child, in her adoptive child, and one of those values she wants to develop is kindness. Who better to do this with than the child's birth family, who are often less fortunate than the adoptive family? Isn't that a wonderful reason to have contact? Make someone's day. She's supporting her child to make the day of the child's birth parents. Helen came and spoke at a seminar, and then she texted me later, and it was a panel with her and the birth parents and the child that had come. And she texted me later because it was the little girl's birthday, and there they were sitting around her home, which was the upper middle class home, with the birth parents who really were very, very marginalised, having pizza and playing Monopoly. Okay, this is Shay. I've asked all these people's permission to give their quotes. Understanding the reasons I'm in care for myself and that it wasn't my fault. Children get stuck with that idea that the reasons they're in care was something to do with them. That's how children think. And Shay was able to grow up understanding that firsthand, not relying on his adoptive mum to tell him that, because kids question that. Kids question that he had that first experience. The other thing about Shay, he also talks about how in having the opportunity to meet his birth parents, and who sadly died when he was in his early teens, but he said, at least Mum, I'll never have to go on to Oprah, because he won't have those, he doesn't feel he's got those issues that his brother, who was in another placement and never got to meet the birth parents, had. Although I wasn't living with my birth mum, knowing that she loved me in her own way and just coming to contact, and that's Khaled. Khaled's doing really well. And anecdotally, it does bring stability it can bring stability to placement. I noticed one of the quotes that the previous speaker had was that the adoptive family was worried about talking about the child's history because they were fearing instability. And my experience is from just talking to a lot of family, anecdotally, that it actually brings stability to placement. I think you said that too, Lynn. One of the factors, here's another good picture. One of the factors there's a typo there. One of the factors identified in beneficial contact is the relationship between the adoptive family and birth family. We've all been talking about that. Quotes, found one by Carolyn Boyle. Outcomes were particularly positive when there was a collaborative approach. Note the word collaborative approach between adoptive parents and birth parents. Children were more likely to benefit from contact when adoptive parents had an open attitude towards contact and when birth relatives' acceptance was high. I'm repeating what others have said. The picture there, I really like that. Often contact on that relationship hangs on a little point. It's tenuous, it's difficult, the balance changes. And I've only spent a little bit of time looking at that picture, but the more I look at it, the more I think that's often how contact is. Okay, but how can we develop positive or good contact when there's an unequal power base? The previous speaker spoke about that, birth parents feeling disempowered, differing backgrounds. Often adoptive parents have never had anything to do with people with mental health issues or people with drug and alcohol issues or people who abuse their children. How do they manage that? Often having differing views about what is in the best interests of the child, having different relationship styles, expectations, different roles. And the one thing I thought about when children come into care, and particularly with an adoption, an adoptive family is wanting to increase and develop their sense of entitlement, while at the same time birth parents are asked to give up their entitlement. That's, how do we do that? What is it that promotes this relationship? Now, all of this, actually, it was interesting because I did a bit of a brainstorm. What are the things that I have seen that does that? And then I Googled again, getting some background information. Guess whose material I came up? Beth's again, and I thought, oh, great! It actually said exactly what I said. So just read her stuff, and you'll be right. So the biggest thing, obviously, and Lynn talked about it, was openness in attitude and communication. But I don't think openness is enough. You can be open, but what if you're not empathic or compassionate? And I've seen that heaps and heaps of times where adoptive families are very open, share all the information, but it's not coloured by empathy or compassion, it's coloured by judgment and negativity. Being respectful of birth family members, and actually and I think we've all talked about it, that I think when we talk about those relationships, it's not necessarily between the adoptive parents and the birth parents. We need to think broader than that. And this has really, really hit me home this year because I became a granny. And I think in becoming a grandmother, it actually made me really appreciate the role of the grandmother and how important we need to be talking to those grandparents. If we can't get on to birth parents, if we can't have them involved, get the grandparents. I think that's really important. And